Okay, so hello everybody. This week we took our first proper look at using grease pencil inside of Blender, and you all got one of those whack-on-one tablets, fairly cheap tablet, just give you a chance to play with sketching in 3D space. So I'm going to run through everything that we did in those sessions, and you'll be able to skip to the chapters that are most relevant for you. Okay, so I've got Blender open and we have the splash screen in front of us, and in our session on Monday we chose the 2D animation file. So just down here, 2D animation, and here we go. There is the 2D animation template, all the preferences set up for 2D animation. So down on the left side we've got all of our tools, and we're already in draw mode. Okay, so previously we used Blender to create a simple mesh model and apply a couple of different materials, and under this drop down here we can see we have object mode, we used that before, and edit mode. So those are the two that we used previously, but now we have draw mode. There's also sculpt mode, weight paint mode, and vertex paint mode as well. So we've got some extra options here, and we're already in draw mode, which is good. We have tools all the way along the top which control the brushes. So if I start to brush straight away, my strength is set to 0.6 and it's controlled by pressure by this button here, and my radius, the width, the radius of the brush is controlled by pressure as well. So let's increase the size of that and see if we do a faint line and then a thick line, and you can see there it gets thicker. So I'm going to get rid of those by pressing Ctrl Z. Okay, so if we increase the strength here and take the pressure sensitivity off, go back to about 20 pixels, we get a continuous black line. Okay, so and we can start drawing straight away. The solid stroke, it's there in this drop down. We've got a black solid stroke. These are materials, so we have red squares. So if I select the red squares, you can see it doesn't look like squares, but when I finish the line you can see the squares. So let's just drag in there and you can see the little squares that make up that line. Okay, so I'll just tap on the camera, get back to the position we had before. Okay, so with these lines, and one last one, let's go back into our shot. Okay, so what's the last one? So if we go solid stroke, red squares, there's solid fill and dot stroke. Let's look at the dot stroke. So dots, that makes sense, and let's do the last one, which is the solid fill. Okay, so we can create these sort of shapes like so. Okay, so all of these things, and let's try some of the different modes here. So the first one, solid stroke, let's create a wiggly line, and then let's go into edit mode. Okay, so in edit mode we can select our line and we can move it just like we could with the meshes. So we can move it in the XYZ axis. We can rotate it. Let's select again. We can rotate it on the Y. We can even go into 3D space. So we can do that with the gimbal here, and we can use the rotate tool and we can rotate it on the Z axis like so, or on the X axis, and we can rotate it in 3D space. So this is the exciting thing, we're drawing in 3D space. So let's undo that. Okay, and let's go back to our camera. Okay, so we can also scale, and let's grab the circle there and we can make that smaller. We can bring that back up. We have this tool here, which is transform. we're gonna skip that. I haven't really played with transform, but I guess we're changing the rotation, and well, I think we're just moving it. So it's like the move. It's scale, rotation, and move all in one. Okay, so this tool is all of these three together. Okay, we've also got this one here. We can extrude a line and we can change the radius. That one's quite good fun. Let's see if that one works. So yeah, we can make it thicker by clicking and dragging. So we can select the whole stroke, or we can select points. Okay, so let's use the circle selection. Okay, so we can select those and then increase the size of the stroke there. Okay, or we could use, so these options at the top. So just like when we were working with meshes, we had control over vertices, edges and faces. Here we've got control over individual vertices, the whole line, or a section of the line. So let's see if we can make a selection. That's very similar to what we were doing before, but and this one here as well, this gives us curve handles, so that let's see, let's get the tweak tool and select the whole thing, and we can see, yeah, these curve handles. Let's see, so if I select just one of these curve handles, I can use the, can I use the rotate tool? That's rotating the whole thing. Let's make sure I'm only selecting one element. Okay, so we've got that curve. We can rotate those handles. We can also, let's use the transform tool because that's really useful. Let's grab the outside ring. Let's see if we can scale this. Let's use the scale tool and see what happens. So scaling, yeah, so we can scale that handle. So this handle, you know, if we wanted a particularly smooth line, we could do that by using these sort of Bezier curve handles. Okay, so let's leave edit mode. Let's go back to draw mode, and actually let's delete it in edit mode and we'll draw a fresh line. Okay, let's turn off those handles, make sure we're selecting the whole thing. Let's press X and delete the points. Okay, so back into draw mode. Let's get a fresh line, and I think I'll use a thicker line, so let's increase that just like so. Okay, so we've got our line. We've got controls at the top. We did look at the advanced settings, the stroke settings, where we could stabilize the stroke, and you can see that with the stabilize stroke you get a much smoother line. With that one turned off, it's going to pick up all the ways in which your hand's a bit more free flowing and, well, wobbly. I'm exaggerating that, but you get the idea. Okay, so we've got those things going on. Let's look at the drop down. Let's look at Sculpt Mode, and I think Sculpt mode is really good because let's increase the radius. Just a little shortcut that's useful is the F key, and if you press the F key, and then you can just find something that find the size that you want to work with. So we're sculpting our line, and this also works in 3D view, but we have to change the drawing plane to the view. So let's rotate the axis here and let's sculpt this way, and you can see we're sculpting in 3D space, which is ace. Okay, so we've got this line in 3D space and we're sculpting it. So the sculpt tool is very useful. We got pinch, we got twirl, got all sorts of brushes there that you want to check out. Okay, so this is a grease pencil. What we're seeing at the moment is the floor, okay, which is this grid. You can turn that off and on by coming up here to show overlays. You can turn it off and on, okay, but it's very useful to be able to see our horizon. We can see over here we have our camera, okay, so every time I press 0 on a numpad or this camera button here, we go into the camera view, okay, which is really good. Yeah, so this is the starting point of grease pencil. Okay, so something that will help us with our drawing is under the overlays. So up here, we can turn on under Sculpt Grease Pencil. We can see the canvas. Okay, so this gives us an indication of where we're working. Okay, at the moment you know that it's set to view. Which means that when I draw, I'm drawing flat onto the canvas. Okay, so if I draw a square, we can see that's the angle at which the canvas was. If I draw another one here, you can see that's where the canvas was there. Okay, so the view is moving depending on where I am moving around within the space. Okay, if we change it to front, it's always going to be facing the front, and in this case it's facing the Y axis. Okay, so if I draw a big circle, we know that that's on the Y axis. Okay, if I change it to the side, now you can see the canvas has changed. Let's change the color. Let's use some vertex colors. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to stick with green and draw a circle there, and you can see that this is now on the side. Okay, so it's perfectly on the side, perfectly on the XY axis. And if we did also the top, okay, you can see now where the canvas is. It's getting a little bit tricky to see, so let's just edit this. Oh, sorry, go to edit mode and let's select everything and press X and delete those points. Okay, so back into drawing mode, and we know that wherever we are, it's going to draw on the top of this plane. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we can see that that's completely flat on the plane. So you've got quite a lot of controls here. So drawing on from the view, front, side, top. You also have the cursor. Okay, so at the moment, I think we'll leave that one because I'm not sure about that one. Okay, but I'm going to stick to view generally. We have some options here as well, where we can draw from the origin, or we can position our 3D cursor and use that, or we can draw on a surface or a stroke. So we're going to cover all of these things. Okay, so again, let's go into edit mode and let's select those lines, press X, delete those points. Okay, so one of the things we did in the session is we drew a cube, and what might be quite useful is to split my screen. So I've got my cursor over here, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new vertical split. Let's try that again. So right click, vertical split, and I'm going to take that to about there. Now this is going to be orthographic view from the top, and I'm going to use this to position where I put my 3D cursor. Okay, so in the top here you can use your middle mouse button just to slide all these controls over so you can see exactly what you want to see, and I want to see the 3D cursor. So the 3D cursor acts like an origin point that we can move around, and all we have to do is shift right click to place it. Okay, so I'm going to place it just about here where my cursor is. So I'm going to press shift on my keyboard and right click, and you can see that I've moved the 3D cursor. So that's the crosshair with the red dashed circle there. That's the 3D cursor, which is very useful. Now I am going to change the position of my drawing here. I'm going to make sure that I'm drawing on the front, and I'm going to use the green, and let's change this to Y, so we're seeing something like that. And I'm going to hide the camera for now, so I'm just going to go to the project browser and turn that off, okay, so it's not in the way. Right, so we've got a green line and we're going to create a square, okay, a wobbly square. So you can see what that is. That's actually still at the origin. So let's see what's happening here. So if I change this to cursor, okay, and let's see what happens when I draw the square now. Okay, 3D cursor, that's not right either. We can see that's going very weird. Let's say, oh, it's because I've got sorry, I should have. Right, so what we're doing is we're drawing on the front, and we're setting the origin. Instead of origin, we're setting that to 3D cursor. Okay, so that we're in draw mode. We have 3D cursor and we have front, and this is how we're going to get the correct what we're looking for. So we're aiming for a cube. We're going to start with a green outline of a square. Okay, and that, as we can see on this side of the screen, we can see that the square is exactly where we want it to be. Okay, so now if I change to side, and I could set my 3D cursor to be just over here, so I could go shift, right click, so my 3D cursor's there, and I could do that just at the top of this line to make sure it's in the middle. So shift, right click, 3D cursor's there, and let's look at this from the X. There we go, so we're on the right side now, and let's change that to a nice red color. Okay, so we're using the side, we're drawing a square there. Okay, and we can see again in the top view, we can see that's exactly where we want it to be. So if we wanted to complete this cube, what we could do is go into edit mode, and we could select this red line. We could press Shift D, which is duplicate, and then we could take that over. We could press X to ensure that that stays on the X axis. We could also do the same with the green one, so we could do Shift D, and we could move that on the Y, so make sure that that's snapping. Okay, and we're getting something that looks the way we want it to. Okay, well let's just do last bit. Let's make the top and the bottom, and we'll make those blue. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to change the view to X, and I'm going to press Shift right click at the top for the 3D cursor, and then I'm going to change this view to draw mode, and let's do top. Okay, and that's looking good. Let's press Z on here, and let's draw ourselves a blue outline square. So we'll get the blue color here, and we'll draw a wobbly line square just like that. And then all we've got to do in this view, in edit mode, is select this line and make sure it's the blue one we selected. Press Shift D, press Z, keep it on the, oh, we've selected the wrong one. Let's press escape. There we go, we've got the blue one now. So we press Shift D, keep that on the Z. Press Z, there we go, and just get that into position. Right, when we orbit around, we can see we've got the blue top and bottom, we've got the red on the X and the green on the Y, and we've got our cube. Okay, so you can draw using those different front and sides. You can also draw, let's go to the splash screen, so you just click on the logo, splash screen, let's start again, don't save. Okay, so we can also draw by using the strokes themselves. Okay, so we're going to create a tree shape now. We're going to use the black stroke, we're going to take off the pressure. I might keep it on this one here, keep the pressure on there, make it a solid black, and yes, we're going to draw some sort of branch, some sort of tree trunk shape here. Okay, so I'm just going to thicken up this line. Okay, so we got something like that. Obviously that is just flat. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is zoom in and sculpt this a little bit. So I'm going to change the drawing plane to view, and I'm going to show you that canvas again. So I'm just going to turn that on so we can see that, and we're going to quickly pop into Sculpt Mode so we can make this a little bit organic. So I'm going to hold F and increase the size of this, and just change these strokes a little bit, little tweaking here and there. A little bit more wavy. I think that's quite a good start. Okay, so so in this case, I'm going to go back to the draw mode, and we're going to stick with the black. I'm going to decrease the radius and get some thinner branches coming off the main trunk of this tree, and we're going to use view, but we're going to change this section here. We're going to change this to stroke placement, stroke. So we're going to use the strokes that we already have, and we've got three options: all points, end points, or first point. So I'm going to choose first point, and I think I'm going to turn off the pressure on this one. We're going to do the branches now. And the important thing here is we have got the canvas turned on when we're drawing, but yeah, we're just going to draw branches coming off at different points. Okay, so whatever view we're in, that's the angle at which that branch is going to go. Okay, so let's get another one there. Let's get some coming off that way. Okay, so you've got to keep moving your view, otherwise you're going to end up with them all being flat again, which is what we don't want. Okay, so I'm just making sure that that first branch, and you can see some of the times I'm going off, some of the times I'm going across some of the strokes, and that's why it's important just to have the first point attached to the stroke. Let's get another one over here. Okay, it's starting to come together. Okay, this reduce the size of, hang on, let's reduce the size to a bit thinner, so we can do some thinner branches. You might need to zoom in a bit. That one was hanging off a bit, but I'm going to leave it. So all the tiny twigs now, and you know we're using this as part of our interior architecture drawings. Obviously, a tree is normally exterior, but and we need lots of trees. You've got to have lots of trees. So it's more sort of symbolic, but there's some really fun details here. So. Alright, so we got some twigs going on. We got our tree. Fantastic. Alright, so let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. There's our tree. Okay, so this tree shape is this grease pencil object here called stroke. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to change the name to tree. And we could go, if we wanted to have lots of trees, I would probably suggest that you go to object mode and duplicate this tree. Okay, so that we'll end up with more trees inside of our project. So let's go click on the Z view, so from up above, and we'll press Shift D, and we've got another tree there. We'll press Shift D and we'll move one there. We'll press Shift D to duplicate one here. Shift D to put one just about there. Okay, now all of these we could use the rotation tool and create some variation. Okay, so let's rotate that way and rotate around that way and rotate that way. Okay, we could also change the scale. Okay, so we could use the scale tool and let's scale that one up, let's scale this one down, let's scale this one up a bit. Just create a little bit of variation. Okay, now if we go to the X view, we need to make sure that everything is on the horizon line, and it might make things a little easier if we could see the floor. What we could do is maybe put in a plane just to help us to see where everything is. So let's just press S to scale that up. Okay, and let's see. I think that's clear enough for us to see. We could always, we could add a material here and make that a little bit darker so we can see what's going on. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so now what we can do on the x-axis, which we still can't see that plane, let's see, let's make it, give it a bit of thickness so we can see. So let's press E, extrude that down. Okay, that should be better. Okay, let's press the X now. So we want all of our trees to be above this bit here. So I'm going to be able to select and press the move tool, and we'll make sure that that's just sitting above the ground. Okay, select this one, use the blue arrow, and you can move in the Z direction. Sprouting out of the ground. There we go. Okay, so there are, well, there's our little forest. Okay, so of trees, which is great. And something else we looked at was changing the camera angle. Okay, so when we press 0 on the numpad, or we press the camera button here, we can see from the camera point of view. But if we press N on our keyboard, we get these options on the right hand side, and we can go to view, and we can control the camera by pressing this little checkbox, camera to view. Okay, we can do that, and what that means is when I move now, I'm moving the camera as well. Okay, so if I get a nice location, let's just pan that into position, something like that. That's pretty good. That's a better viewpoint for the camera. Oh, the other thing we did in session was we did a little camera turnaround. Okay, so I'm going to go to edit, preferences, and built into Blender there's a turnaround camera. So I type in turn, and you can see that I've already got it activated. When you press the drop down arrow, it will tell you where those controls are. So 3D view, sidebar, view tab, turnaround camera. Okay, so we can use that. So let's close this, press that N key again, or you could click on this little button here, and if we go to view, and we got to make sure we're in object mode. Actually, I think it's under the animate tab. There it is, turnaround camera. All we have to do is press turnaround. Okay, and what that will do is it will create an animation for us. So if I press the spacebar, you can now see that I have a camera going around this object. Okay, you've got to have an object selected for this to work, and you can see that it's doing one full revolution on the Z axis. So you can change that. You could reduce that down to just maybe 0.25. Press turn around again, and you can see now that it's only doing a quarter turn of what we've done. You can also select backward and forward, but each time you make changes you have to press turn around again, and that will create the animation for you. Okay, so this is a really useful tool for creating an animation that we could then render out and show off our projects. Okay, so that's useful. Okay, so in the next part, what we're going to look at is using grease pencil to draw on the surface of a mesh object. Okay, so what I'll do is go to the splash screen, select the splash screen, and we'll do 2D animation. I'm going to press don't save, and we're back where we were before. So increase the strength, turn off the pressure, and I'm going to use the vertex paint colors this time. Okay, so that we know we can create materials, and that's really good because if we want to go back and adjust those materials, it's going to adjust every instance of that particular material. So if we change the black stroke to a green stroke, it's going to change everywhere where the black stroke was used to a green stroke. But with the vertex colors, we've got a lot more freedom. We can choose different colors as we go along, but it's a lot harder to change those colors at a later stage. So we've got two options there, but I'm going to use the vertex colors for this one. Now to draw on the surface, what we need is the surface of something to be there. So I'm going to drop out of draw mode, go to object mode, and then press add, or you could press shift A, and we're going to add a UV sphere. Okay, so we're going to have a sphere here, and we're going to use this as our canvas, so we can have lots of 3D shapes, and we can use them to draw on. What might be quite interesting here is if we duplicate this sphere, so Shift D, and let's take that over there, and let's scale that down, something like that. Okay, so we've got these two spheres, and we're going to use those as a canvas. Now I'm going to press Control A just to finalize that scale that I changed there. Okay, so we've got two spheres, sphere and sphere.001. We're going to go back into Stroke, and we're going to use these spheres as our canvas. I'm going to reduce the timeline because we don't need that at the moment. So I'm going to go into Draw Mode, and I'm going to be drawing on the surface. Now I want to change the distance from the surface to be 0.02. Okay, so really close, and also I'm going to make sure that I'm in sort of orthographic, isometric, orthographic view for this. I'm going to hide the camera so it's not in the way, and we're also going to use the view. Let's see if we can see our canvas. That doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to use my stylus now, and I'm going to start to draw scribbles on this sphere shape. Okay, so you can see that that's on the surface of this sphere, and I'm going to change colors as I go, and I'm going to create lots of squiggles and some different shapes. Let's change the color again. Lots of lines, and I'm going to go over these two shapes. You see how that it sort of fits really closely together. We'll get some interesting lines there. Sometimes you want to press Control Z if there's a particular line that you don't like. That's better. Lots of squiggles. Another colour. Let's get some greens. Get some darker colours going on. Lots of lines. Let's increase the weight of that. You might think, what is he doing? All these different lines. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, now that I've done these scribbles, I'm going to add a turnaround camera back on. Okay, so there's my view. I'm going to turn off the spheres that I've used as canvas, and I'm going to press this little button here and make sure I'm in object mode, because otherwise this does not work. Okay, go to animate, turn around camera, and there we go, it's done. let's press N, and let's press spacebar to preview the animation, which looks something like that. Okay, so we can create some very interesting shapes. Now all of these grease pencil lines, and it's quite interesting looking at this. It looks like it's going backwards and forwards because we're sort of in orthographic view. Let's see what it looks like. Is that better? It's a bit closer to that end. Going around, going further back. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so we're getting some perspective there, which is really good. Oh, you'll also notice that when this animation is happening, there's no keyframes down here, and there we can see some easing where the animation is slow to begin with, and then it goes full speed, and then it slows down at the end. This is called easy ease or easing. And if we wanted to make something that just continuously looped, we would have to go to deep down inside the stroke. We have here the animation. Was it this one? We need to be looking at the timeline. That would help. There we go. There are the keys. Okay, so the keyframes. And if we go to view, I think right click, we've got interpolation mode, interpolation, and I'm going to choose linear. And now we've got no easing, which means it just makes a continuous loop going round and round and round, so there's no end to it, which is quite a nice option sometimes when you're posting on social media. Okay, so we've covered like the all of the things we did in the session with grease pencil. There's a lot to play with. It's just about giving yourself a bunch of hours, you know, one afternoon, just play with grease pencil, see what you can create, you know, make sure you save these files. You know, they're going to grow bigger and bigger. I have been working on, I'll show you what I've been working on. This one. Okay, so this is a file I've been working on, and this is a coffee shop near me, and I'm just using it to experiment with animation with grease pencil. And I've added some modifiers to my grease pencil. So first of all, I've added line art, which makes grease pencil lines around meshes that I might already have. Then noise, which makes when I'm animating it looks like it's being redrawn. And then a build modifier, which definitely makes it look like it's being drawn as you go along. So let's press spacebar on here, and yeah, you can see the initial lines that I'm drawing. So this is my project so far, and there's a lot of experimentation here. Actually, this is reminding me a really important detail with grease pencil that I mentioned to you guys is under this option here, which is let's hover over that so you can see. This is our object data properties. I'm pretty sure. Okay, down in strokes. Something we had to change on Monday was instead of 2D layers, we've got 3D location. Okay, so I've put on 3D location so things are looking the way they should do within a 3D object. Okay, so that's the object data properties, and it's the stroke depth order, which should be 3D location if you're working on an animation similar to this. Okay, so yeah. And the last thing that I will cover, let's go back to the splash screen, 2D animation. Don't save. Okay, so if we are making an animation, there is a certain amount of, well, there's this expectation that you'll probably want to do some stop frame animation. Okay, so if And the way that that works is if I'm just create a line like this and then press my right arrow key, you can then see the playhead has moved to frame 2. And if I start to draw, you can see that the original line is grey. Okay, so I keep pressing my right cursor key and I keep putting in new frames. So this is traditional hand-drawn animation where you draw each of the frames each time you press the right cursor key, and you start to make your animation. Let's draw something like this. And keep going forwards. Just do one more and then you can see the effect. Okay, so if we go back through the playhead, you can see that's the animation. Boom, boom. Okay, so stop frame animation. So Grease Pencil is set up automatically ready to do the stop frame animation. So you've got to be really careful with this playhead. If you press play in your animation and you start to draw something else, it's not going to take any of the other information with it. It's expecting you to draw a new cell in your animation. So make sure that you move it back to frame 1 if that's where all the action is, and you can do that with a shortcut which is Shift and the left cursor key will take you back, Shift and the right cursor key will take you all the way to the other end. These keyframes, it might seem laborious to draw each frame. Once you've drawn certain frames, you can select those frames and copy them and repeat them along the timeline. So there are other ways, to speed up the process. There might be just some little details that you need within your animations or within the narratives that you're creating that make all the difference. So just little features or little interactions between people within the space that you're designing could be really good with a little bit of stop frame animation. So all of this can happen inside of something where the camera is moving around, you've got 3D objects, and you've also got a little bit of stop frame animation happening inside there as well. So we've covered a lot of information, so if you've watched all of this, that's great. Yeah, thanks for joining me, and make sure you leave comments, and we can definitely cover some more Grease Pencil as we go through the weeks coming forward. So yeah, thanks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.